I'm Sarah Burke, and this is the Women in Media podcast. You gotta love the iPhone. They have built those things to keep every contact you've ever had. For this episode, I went back to a contact card I've had since about 2007, a friend from university, to see how the hell I could get in touch with one of the most booked tattoo artists in the world. And sure, I love her art, but I had just watched a video that had me in tears on her new website for a jewelry line called Chronic House.
So my first interview at Chronic Inc., I sat down with Ricky and I showed him my portfolio, which was, to be honest, laughable. And Ricky, in a very, very nice way said, refine my drawing skills. And I did not take that for an answer. Fast forward, I became the first female owner of Chronic Inc. I mean, my career took off quite fast. I was having a lot of people book with me, so I had, a very long wait list, and it was becoming very surreal. And yeah, I guess you could say that I was living the dream. And then it kind of all came to a stop for me about 3 years ago. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. I had arthritis in all of my joints. I couldn't bend my knees. I couldn't walk. I didn't know whether I could tattoo until the day that I woke up.
My guest today is Joanna Roman. She is the founder and head designer of Chronic House Jewellery, the first female partner with Chronic Inc., and a talented tattoo artist known as the Queen of Clean Lines. Joanna Roman, welcome to the Women in Media podcast.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you. Happy to be here.
And who's this you got with you?
This is my little girl, Tootsie.
Tootsie is a very cute dog.
She's my little angel.
Just got in from the vet, by the way. Yep. So we're all set up.
She is definitely main character energy, so she'll probably be bothering me a little bit through this, but at least she's cute to look at.
Oh, yeah. If you want to see some of the video, we're putting the podcast on YouTube now, so check that out. Anyway, so you and I have met, I think maybe once, possibly more than once, through a mutual friend, Sarah Murphy, who I went to university
probably
with.
Back in the day, Western days.
Yes. Yeah. You were one of her like crazy party friends who came up, in first year to go to the bars. And I was really new to the bar scene then, so I don't even want to know at that point how I was.
Yeah, no.
But
I didn't go there for education. I went there for fun.
When did you get your first tattoo? What got you into this world?
I got my first tattoo before I was actually a tattoo artist. Okay. I think when I started tattooing, I only had two very, very small ones. So I had gone to just like some random shop, had no idea what was, had no idea how to look for an art. No fake ID, but I didn't know like what artist to look for. I just assumed that, you could walk in, you can kind of get anything. Yeah. Obviously that mentality has changed a lot. Yeah. But luckily I didn't get anything too bad. But yeah, I started tattooing about 6-7 years ago as an apprentice. And then I think I've been professionally working as a tattoo artist for about the last 6 years. Yeah. 5-6 years.
So was it maybe like art and illustration was always your thing? Does that go back to like when you were growing up?
Yeah, for sure. So I'd always drawn as a child. I'd always loved to do it as a hobby. And basically, I used to work as an ECE. So I used to work with children, and I did also private therapy with children with autism.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was, I love kids. I loved working with kids. The job was, I loved my job. I didn't love the pay. So shout out to all the youth workers out there and working children, working kids, because it's hard and they need more compensation, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, so I basically, I'm not going to lie, I had a quarter life crisis. And I just decided that I was not happy doing what I was doing. Even though I love the children, I just didn't find the job as fulfilling. And I had always been asked by friends to, hey, can you help me draw on a design? I know you're good at art. Could you, maybe help me design a tattoo? So I did that for one of my friends. And the tattoo artist actually ended up reaching out to me after the tattoo was done and said, wow, your work is really, really good. You should think about being a tattoo artist. And that's kind of how the light bulb went out. And then I had some really supportive friends who really, really pushed me into trying something new. And It was scary. And I had to I was at first doing it kind of in between jobs and just trying to practice. And then I ended up just kind of taking the really scary plunge and quitting my ECE job and going full time as an apprentice, making no money, working for, crackers. And eventually I was able to graduate and became a tattoo artist. And then A couple years later, I ended up becoming one of the partners of Chronic Inc. I opened up my first location at Square One. And
Which
since
is in
then, we're now,
Mississauga, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know.
that is in Mississauga, yeah. And yeah, now we have 9 locations. And we just opened our last one in Las Vegas, our first international shop.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you just got back from Vegas. I feel like that was last week,
Yeah.
and so you were part of like opening, the first international shop. How does it feel to like expand a Canadian business internationally?
I mean, it feels amazing. Obviously, I haven't been with the company from day one. I've only been there for about, I think I'm getting my timelines wrong because like time is very fleeting, especially with COVID and all that's happened in between.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think that I think I think it was about year 9 that I started with Chronic Inc. and we just celebrated 15 years in a business. And
Cool.
I know that, any kind of business, especially tattoo industry, staying, um, you know, constant and strong for 15 years is a very, very difficult thing to do. So the
Yeah.
fact that not only are we able to sustain the shops that we had, that we're able to actually continue to expand is something that I'm really, really proud of.
And I feel like I read a post, or maybe it was an article, that you were being interviewed. Oh, it was BlogTO. I remember this.
Yes, yes, yes,
And
yes.
you made a comment saying that like you think Chronic Inc.'s tattoo artists, even in the apprentice phase, are probably much stronger than so many other tattoo artists around the world. Like what is the maybe like the values of the company of Chronic Inc. that and what attracted you to that business in the first place?
I mean, Chronic Inc. is probably one of the more progressive, if I would not say most progressive, tattoo studios that I've ever seen. We just, there's a really big values of like, obviously strong art foundations, and we have amazing mentors and head artists who are there to give, apprentices their teachings and guidance and help them through their journey as they learn how to tattoo. And we are pretty selective about who we, eventually will, turn into apprentice and then turn into a artist afterwards. And the company just holds a really strong community presence. They're very much about the people, which is what I love about them. We're like, I think we're like the first tattoo studio that actually has like benefits, healthcare, HR
Wow.
team.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
because I mean, the tattoo industry typically or historically has been not the greatest place for a lot of women. There's, obviously a lot of stories that you hear about some men who kind of, you're doing a job that you have to be very close to someone's body. It can seem quite intimate from time to time.
Yeah.
So we wanted to create a really safe place for people, not only who are getting tattooed, but also for the people who work there.
Yeah.
So I really loved that about the company. And they also give a lot back. Like I think during COVID, we donated, I think like 10,000 gloves when they were needed by the hospitals, just because obviously as tattoo artists, we had a huge inventory of gloves.
Right.
So we were able to give those away. We also had artists, including myself, design face masks that we're able to sell and then donate to charities
Love
to
that.
help with the nurses and the staffing. And we're also actually able to give compensation to the workers who were out of work for that amount of time with the money that we also raised with the
That's
face
amazing.
mask. So yeah, there's a lot of just um, it's a really the company likes to give back, and I have to take like I mean I'll take some responsibility for that, but that's definitely the CEO Ricky. He's very very much about community, about helping people. He wants to see people succeed. He wants to help as much as he can, and yeah, it's a really nice company to work for sure.
So I also read one of your recent posts where you were like, "High school me is singing Nelly Furtado, but little did I know I would ever tattoo her for her first tattoo." So
Right?
I heard your name like over the last few years because it's like every musician that I'm interviewing, something comes up about getting tattoos in Toronto, and then
Oh no
I'm like
way.
all of a sudden hearing your name everywhere, and I was like, I feel like I partied with that girl once. Anyway, so here we are, right? How did the celebrity tattooing thing happen? And Nelly Furtado, you got to tell me about that too.
Yeah, I mean, my career took a lot of it took gained a lot of speed very, very quickly.
Yeah, no
Um,
kidding.
I think I was actually on the precipice of when small tattoos were becoming very, very popular. And luckily, I had a very, very steady hand and I was able to do them very well. So when I first started as an apprentice, I thought that I would be doing realism because I had always drawn women's portraits, realistic faces. So that's kind of the, avenue that thought I would go down. But then as I started learning how to tattoo, a lot of my own mentors were very shocked by how steady my lines were, even from like the first tattoo.
They call it micro, right? Micro tattooing,
So yeah,
that
micro
style.
fine line tattoos, micro tattoos, yeah. So it's anything that basically has like a very, very small needle. And it's a lot of precision. So I mean, when you're doing a big piece with a lot of shading, those little lines, they don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you're doing something very, very small, very simple, maybe it's a, signature of a loved one that has passed away and memorial, you see every single tiny mistake. So it's very important to have an artist who obviously has a good, steady
Yeah.
hand with it. And I mean, I truly believe that I got that from my grandmother. She was a Ukrainian woman who survived a famine and two world wars. And she was incredibly talented at painting Ukrainian Easter eggs, which take a lot of intricate
Oh,
detail.
we did
Very,
those in school in Richmond Hill.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's a little bit different what she did because she had it with a wax, and it's basically like almost like geometric patterns around an egg, but it's done in such a small um, scale that I think I truly got a lot of my kind of steady hands from her.
Cool.
So thank you, Bubba. Um, but yeah, so that was kind of as I kept learning and kept tattooing, I became very, very good at the small tattoos. And I realized that in the studio, there actually wasn't a lot of fine line artists. Um,
So you could own
so
the niche.
yeah, so and it was a little bit weird when I was talking to some of my partners about it at the time because they were like, like really, you want to do like small things, like you don't want to do like a big back piece or a big arm sleeve, and I just kind of thought about myself as a consumer and like what I would have wanted before I became a tattoo artist.
Also,
Obviously
as
now
a female.
yeah, also as a female, like I appreciate the small tattoos, and a lot of women do love those tiny, tiny tattoos that just, they might be small, but they have a huge meaning to them. And, they want to go to someone who actually cares about doing it as well, as opposed to, another artist who's just kind of fill a break in between the day and says, okay, I'll do a heart for you, whatever. But
Right.
it doesn't look the same. So.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
know. We know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that became yeah, so my career started taking off. I started getting notoriety in like magazines. I was in Cosmopolitan, I was on Perez Hilton, I was in
Amazing.
Allure. Yeah, I was in like the Vogue in the Philippines. Like it was just
What?
it started just becoming I got a lot of attention. And then obviously from that I started getting people reaching out to me who were really cool, such as Nelly Furtado. Um, and yeah, it was just it's been a little surreal. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
So,
it's an honor.
but yeah, but then unfortunately, during that time, I also got diagnosed with Crohn's disease.
Yes, I've been reading about that, and that kind of led to the
Yeah,
next journey that you've started.
yeah. So I'm at a huge high. Everything's going great in my life. I'm, traveling the world, tattooing. We're going to Vietnam. We're in, Bali. We're in
Like
Thailand. We're
people were flying you all over to do these tattoos.
Yeah, like we were just
Wow.
we were really I was really on top of the world, and then it all kind of came to a halt because I got really really sick, and I didn't know what was happening, and it took a long time to figure out the unfortunate things with Crohn's and colitis is that it's very hard to diagnose. It's a very lengthy process
Mm-hmm.
because they basically have to rule out anything before they can give you that diagnosis. So it's
Yeah.
basically a process of elimination. And during that time, I was hospitalized for, I think a couple months. I lost mobility because my joints and my whole body was inflamed from being sick.
Shit.
So I couldn't walk. I couldn't hold a fist. I couldn't, I really couldn't do anything. So it
Holy.
was a very, very, very scary time in my life at that point because I realized that if I can't use my hands, how am I going to tattoo?
Yeah.
So that was a very, very uh, life altering period. Um, Luckily, I've been working through treatments for the past about 5 years. Within the last 3 years is when it got quite serious. And I've been hospitalized again, had to do some surgeries. But I've actually just recently started a new biologic treatment, which is basically an immune suppressor. So I do my IVs once every 6 weeks. They put me up with medication. I actually did it yesterday. And it seems to be working, which is fingers crossed that it
Yeah.
continues that way. And now I'm able to, get back in the shop and, feel good again. But that's kind of how the jewelry line came to be, was
Chronic
because
House.
Chronic House, yes. So that basically started when I was in bed and I realized, what would I do if I can't use my hands anymore? Like, how can I still continue to spread my art and still do what I love, but if I can't, get out of bed? So that's how Chronic House started, which, yeah, it became
Mm,
really, really a really great outlet for me. It gave me a lot of hope. And it gave
yeah.
me a kind of a newfound purpose.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's now I'm excited that not only am I able to tattoo still, but now I'm able to also make jewelry. So
Yeah. You're like redefining, which is sweet.
yeah, yeah,
On this podcast, we talk so much about what women go through in the spotlight. And I think there's like a big piece here where it's brave that you have like shared your journey with Crohn's because,
yeah.
a lot of
I mean,
people.
people don't like to talk about their poop.
No. Yeah, yeah. That's like the first excuse you give when you don't want someone to ask you like what's wrong or why you aren't somewhere is like, "Oh, just
Yeah,
having a thing."
yeah,
But
honestly, but like you can't take this shit seriously. So,
like that, like that.
and I think that there's also the more and more people that I'm open up with it and I talk to about it, there's so many people who are living with Crohn's and colitis. So that's why even for the first launch of the jewelry collection, I had created a lot of pieces and I did them in honor of a lot of family members and friends. And I was able to give some, we actually gave proceeds to my papa's piece, which is the hairy stocking ring. I don't know if you can see it that well, but it's that little
Oh,
butterfly in the middle.
beauty. Yeah.
And yeah, I we gave proceeds to the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of Canada in order to
Look at
help
you.
research with that. Yeah, so I think it's really important to not be to for someone to have a voice when it comes to that kind of stuff because it can feel very lonely when you're in the
Yeah.
heat of it. You can feel really isolated because people it's an invisible disease. You look like you're okay, um, but you feel horrible. And
Yeah.
it's really hard to explain to someone that feeling if you've never felt it before. So, I mean, anyone who's going through this
Yeah.
IBD journey, I have a lot of empathy for. And I just thought it was, to kind of make it not so scary to talk about because I think people really need support during those times because
Yeah.
eventually if you keep saying, like your friends invite you out and you can't go out because you're sick, and
Yeah.
that happens over and over, eventually the invites stop coming. And
Yeah.
it can feel very isolating. And I think that it's just, yeah, I would love to bring a lot more awareness to that. And that's also something that's been quite important to me going forward in my career, that if I can talk about it and,
Yeah.
spread awareness as much as I can, I'm really happy to do that.
Yeah. So there's also a piece of your story where, that high you were talking about and then everything
Yeah.
coming crashing down. I think sometimes women find themselves thinking about things like that, like failure, when it's something completely outside of your control, but it's
Yeah.
based on how others perceive what you do or what
Yeah.
you're doing with your life and your career. How did you deal with like the new reality at that time when you were on top of the world?
Yeah. Um, I mean, even when I was on top of the world, I mean, being a female tattoo artist, a lot of people can write you off as, oh, you're not that talented, you're just a pretty face. So they can actually, devalue the talent that you actually have. And I've seen it with a lot of girls
Yeah.
in
There's a
in a
lot of
male.
narcissism in that world.
Yeah, and there's a lot of older tattoo artist mentality that if I'm doing a small butterfly, that shouldn't be respected as much as, someone's big back piece. And I used to get a lot of, oh, they're only going to you because you're hot. I mean, thank you. But no, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Obviously, like my work speaks for itself. I have and like I said, I have a very steady hand. And not only that, my tattoos heal the same way that they look the day of. So that's also very hard to find because sometimes you can get a tattoo and it looks beautiful when that tattoo artist takes that first photo. but then you give it 3 weeks and it does not look the same anymore.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of fight a lot with old coworkers who I no longer work with people in the industry to kind of, you know, give me a little bit more respect. And I know that that caused some issues with some, again, old coworkers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But especially when I became a partner, because luckily Ricky, the CEO, he was not in that mentality of, you're only getting work because
Yeah.
you're a girl.
Yeah.
He saw the talent, he saw the value in me, and he took the leap in offering me a partnership and ownership in the company. Um, and then I think, some people actually left the company because they actually weren't in support of it that much. So I'm very, very grateful to him
Lots
that
of
he,
lessons learned through there, I bet.
yeah, no, you really see the narcissism and the misogyny that can be within the industry. Um, but again, I'm very, very grateful that the team that I work with and the group of owners that we have
Yeah.
are all very close friends of mine now. We're all, oh, okay. Sorry, Toots just decided that she wants to play, and
It's
my
okay.
headphone. Yeah, no, this is what I'm dealing with.
Oh, tut. What about like venturing into business? Like, and being transparent with you, like even right now, I'm just venturing into my own business now after working for companies for years, right? And it can be very intimidating when you don't come from that
Terrifying,
background. Yeah. So how
100%.
did you find that journey?
Very scary. I mean, even taking that leap to quit my job before knowing if I would actually be hired as a tattoo artist, because
Wow,
I quit
yeah.
my job as an apprentice, right? So I was basically living off of my parents for that time when I was learning how to tattoo. And it was, yeah, it was definitely really, really scary. It took a huge leap of faith to do it. In the end, I'm so, so grateful I did it.
Yeah,
Because, I think that some of the scariest things or some of the best things are on the other side of fear. And
absolutely.
yeah, it was, I think as long as you're passionate about what you're doing, and I think as long as you put love into your work, and I think if you give it your all, um, I think, the money and the success will come, but it's about doing something that you're passionate about and something that you love. Um,
Yeah.
and having a good team of people around you to help you with that journey, right? So I had some of the best tattoo artists in the world who were able to, give me their lessons and help teach me how to tattoo and support me along the way, teach me about how to budget my money. A lot of tattoo artists, they live paycheck to paycheck and, they
Yeah.
don't really think too long term because, sometimes cash can come in really fast. And then there's other times like when COVID hit where it stops. And
Yeah.
that's, if like even when I was sick, if you can't physically tattoo or work, then there's no money coming in. So that can also be a scary place. So luckily, again, the partners that I work with have been super helpful with helping me understand the business side of it, understanding how to save my
Yeah.
money and invest it properly, and do right things with it. And that's also again why Chronic House was also established because like I am the head jewelry designer as of now, but it will slowly start to expand to other artists, whether it be in our shop or maybe even not in our shop. That we
Cool.
want to give them a platform that if they wanted to make their own jewelry, we can take their designs, we can send them to our manufacturers, and then they can also sell them out of their workspace so that they can, create another
Yeah.
line of revenue and, kind of help them out that, when times are tough or you get sick or
Yeah.
the world shuts down because of a pandemic that, there's still something that you can do to help keep
Yeah.
you afloat.
I feel like you're paving the way for, some of those people in the tattoo business to think differently about it for the first time. So good on you for that.
100%. I think, yeah,
Yeah.
I think even when we hired the HR team, I think that was like probably one of the proudest moments that I had because I just felt like it was so important to have that safety in the workplace.
Yeah.
And then even when we gave, the option of benefits to our
Yeah.
workers, right? Like we wanted to create a space where people could work and actually, again, have the proper tools and the resources to feel like they're, I'm taken care of, I'm comfortable, and,
Yeah.
I'm protected.
Yeah. So just going back to again being like a female in the tattoo space, can you tell me about a like a really proud moment where you had to stand up for yourself? Maybe in one of those situations where your skill was questioned simply because you're a woman?
Um, I mean, there's been a few. I'm trying to think
You're
about
like,
which
which
one.
one?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about
Yeah.
which one would be the most impactful. Um, I mean, I've had people that I no longer work with. Um, when I was an apprentice, they, I think historically, apprentices are treated very
In any
poorly.
business sometimes, yeah.
Yes, they're kind of the punching bag of the studio, and they're the ones doing all the cleanup, and they're the ones still having to practice, but they're you can feel very belittled. And I
Yeah.
mean, there's shitty people in any industry that you work
Yes.
for, but
Yeah, yeah.
I think with tattoo artists, because it's more of a, the culture is a little bit different, right? Like it's more of a personal vibe. A lot of these shops, it's like, tattoo artists working with their friends, and it's a
Yeah.
close knit group. And I just I felt like our company had to take a very strong stand and a no tolerance policy when it comes to, um, you know, sexual assault.
All of
Um,
it.
yeah. I think also just like being able to get a lot more women in the industry,
Yeah, yeah.
and getting, like, I mean, like I told you when I started, the fine line wasn't a huge success. After I started doing fine line, I think about 70% of our hires now as apprentices are focusing in fine line. So I think it
Cool.
created up a whole new avenue for, people to come and, you know, do what they love and be a part
Yeah.
of the industry. So that was a really proud moment too. Is just like being able to like
Yeah.
bring women on the team, give them the resources and tools they need to be successful, and then continue to support them along, not only through their apprentice journey, but also when you become a professional artist. Sometimes even working with clients, right? There's a lot of guys who, will get tattooed, and again, you're very intimately sitting next to them, you're touching their skin, and they might say something quite inappropriate or make you feel uncomfortable, and we have a zero tolerance for that too. So if that ever happens, we have protocols in
Yeah.
place that you get out of there, find someone at front desk,
Yeah.
we try. That was also like a really proud and important thing that I think that we've implicated into the shop, is to just like, really make sure that we have a
Yeah.
strong HR team and there's a
Yeah.
zero tolerance policy, and, we don't give you two chances to fuck up.
I love that. So I usually end this podcast asking you to drop a couple female names of people who have great stories to share, whether or not they're in the tattoo industry, but definitely like females that you see in the media space. So think about that for a second. But on the way there, I want to know your most touching, call it reaction from a client, like someone you've tattooed. One of the most touching stories that's come out of a tattoo.
Um, I mean, there's a lot.
I
I mean,
know.
tattoos in general, people come to you because a lot of them have to do with, a very significant change in their life. Maybe it's a memoriam to someone that they've lost or loved. Um, I think a really cool one for me would be, about last year. I had one of the children that I used to look after in daycare turn 18, and she had reached out to me asking for her first tattoo.
Oh my God.
Um, so that was a very surreal, moment for me. Because I mean, when I worked with her, I started with her when she was just in kindergarten. Um, it really ages me, but that's fine.
We old.
Yeah,
I think we're
we're
the
old.
same age. 87?
Yeah, we're, yeah, 87.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So she had reached out to me asking for her first tattoo. And she was actually, so I started with her in the kindergarten room. And I actually, I was an ECE, I kind of followed her all the way up until she was school age. And then eventually I left, she eventually left and went on to high school. And she actually, this was her last year of high school. So she's just about to go into university. And again, she reached out. She said that, she was actually able to see me actually while I was in the process of my apprenticeship. So, I'd be at work and getting the class ready and stuff like that. And she would see me, quickly doing my sketches because I was getting my drawings done for my
Yeah.
apprentice meetings later. So she got to see kind of that really beginning level and that startup of how I became a career. Since then, she obviously followed me on Instagram. She's been
Full
watching my
circle.
success. And it was a full circle moment. And she came in and she wrote me this beautiful, beautiful card that basically just said that, I had left quite, you know, they knew that I was leaving, but I think when I actually cut it off, I did it quite quickly and, kind of ripped the band-aid off. Like I didn't want to have a long drawn out goodbye because that just would have broken my heart.
Yeah, yeah.
So she had said, like, I'm really happy to reconnect with you again. I still remember your drawings and how much you like, cared about art, and I implemented it into the program where I was working at the school. And she had written that I had inspired her a lot to do her own artistic journey. And the card that she actually made me, I didn't even realize until after that she had hand painted it herself. And she has become extremely talented. And she just said, yeah, that I inspired her a lot growing up. And she gives a lot of thanks for that. And it was, I
You
bawled.
feel that one. Whew.
I felt that one, yeah. So that was really, really, really special to me.
Amazing.
I've also had another client who came in. He was 93, and it was his first
Shit.
tattoo. Yeah, I'll never forget him, Bernie. Bernie came in.
Bernie.
Bernie, he came in, this sweet, sweet, sweet man. He wanted a quote. I think it was a Bible verse or something that was very meaningful to him. It was his first, and I think it was probably his only tattoo. Um, and yeah, he was just, the reaction he gave, he was just so, so proud and happy. And I don't think there's any better feeling than seeing a client look at their tattoo. You know, you see, like, the eyes welt and,
Yeah.
they get really emotional and they're so happy. And
Yeah.
I don't think there's a better feeling than that, to be
What was it
honest.
that you tattooed on Nelly Furtado? It was so small, I couldn't really see it in that shoulder photo.
So, I mean, she did actually ask me to keep it a little bit
Oh, that's
private.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
It's fine. It was just, it was something for her family.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah, yeah.
That's sweet. And she trusted you with that, which I love too.
Yeah, she did. I mean, Nelly Furtado actually like did have so one of my really close friends, Manny, he is an extension specialist.
Oh, I've heard of
Uh,
this fellow. Yeah.
right.
They're
I'm actually
beautiful.
going I'm actually going to see him on tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think. I think we're doing
Yeah.
pink hair again. So
Oh,
I'll be
very
a
nice.
completely new girl by next week. But yeah, he actually was the one who originally got introduced to Nelly Furtado to do her hair. And then it just so happened that her daughter was a really big fan of mine. So when she made the connection that her mom was going to see Manny, she was like, kind of that
Yeah.
kind of got brought up that, his
Yeah.
best friend is a tattoo artist and that she loved my work. So I was actually able to go to Nelly's first studio while she was recording this album that she's about to release.
Oh,
And I was able to
fun.
actually watch her in the booth and while she was recording some of her songs, and her
Sick.
music's amazing. Like I'm so excited for it to be released. It's actually unreal. But yeah, and then I tattooed her daughter in the other room.
Oh,
It was a really, really cool
lots of
experience.
full
Yeah.
circle moments for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like who didn't like
Yeah.
love Nelly Furtado, right? So
Yeah.
she's the Canadian icon.
To wrap this, give me a couple names of women you super admire that you think would tell great stories on this podcast, whether they're in tattoo art or not.
Um, I mean, honestly, I'm inspired a lot by the women in my family.
Yeah.
Um, my mom was um, working as a regional director for huge fashion companies. Okay, Tootsie, relax. I'm gonna play with you.
That's not that's not Joanna making those
Well,
noises for the
yeah,
record.
it's I'm not grunting. You can see that
It's
she
the
just wants
dog.
to play. She wants to play. Um, yeah, it's really the women in my family that have given me
Yeah.
that have been really inspired by um, my mom. She worked in the fashion industry. She was a regional director for Tristan in America. I don't know if you remember
Oh,
that company.
I totally
Um,
do. Yeah.
yeah, she actually, well, she first started off at MAC Cosmetics. She was doing the formulas and making, eyeshadows and different
No
colors of
way.
lipsticks and stuff like that. And then she ended up becoming a regional director of Tristan America. I think from then she moved on to the Children's Place. So that was actually um, really cool to see my mom, who was very, very strong, independent, successful
Yeah.
businesswoman. And then at that time, you're thinking about 30 years ago, that was, even harder than it is
Few
today
and
for a
far
woman.
between.
Yeah, like I mean, she was actually like my father was a police officer, but she actually, was making probably better money than he was at that point, right? So, I mean, that was
Oh,
really, really cool to grow up and see her just so, you know,
yeah.
successful and independent. And then I look at my grandparents, my grandmother, her mother, she actually was really, really uh, top in the company of Scotiabank. I think it was
She was
Scotiabank.
high up in Scotia.
Yeah, like my Nana was incredibly successful in her career. I remember she was like the go-to girl to if you needed a resume done or you needed to write it, get anything written out, you'd go to her because she was just incredibly intelligent and
Yeah.
really, really, again, worked at a very high position at a bank.
Yeah.
And then I also have my other grandmother on my dad's side. I mean, she was a Ukrainian, strong, strong woman. She survived a famine, lost family members in Ukraine from that. Survived 2 world wars. She was in a concentration camp. She
Oh
was
my
actually able
gosh.
to be rescued by British soldiers and moved to England, where my dad was born. And she was just, I mean, this woman was a fighter to the end. So I
Yeah.
think it's, yeah, the women in my family are the ones who have made me incredibly, I
Yeah.
think, strong and determined and, you know, kind of take no shit from no one. And
We
I'm
love
really,
it.
really proud to, have a piece of them in me.
Oh, well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And it's been really cool watching your career since a night out in London, Ontario,
I
what,
know,
20
right? How
years
times
ago?
have changed. How times have changed. Yeah, we'll talk about our party stories later, but maybe not on air.
But congratulations on your business, your new
Thank
jewelry
you
line.
so much.
We'll have links and everything in the show notes if you want to
Yeah,
check
and
anything out.
congratulations to you and starting your own venture. And I wish you all nothing but success. And
Oh,
I think
thanks.
I was watching your other podcast the other night, and you seem to be doing
Oh,
great. And I wish you all the success too.